Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel. New to polishing? Worried about polishing your car for the first time? Well, with new Sealant Bang, just in advert mode, we'll do a video today, guys, showing you how to polish a car. And if you look at the paintwork in question here, I'm not sure how well it's going to show on this thing, but this paint is absolutely hammered. It's looking, in the viewfinder, looking like it's quite good, but it isn't. It's absolutely battered. So what we're going to do, it is absolutely hammered. Love it. And this is why I say love it, is because you can make so many improvements with paint. I'm just going to, let's rubberize this light. So I'm just going to stick it there because it's going to work really well as showing me what's going on. Now, whenever you polish your car, guys, the first thing is you have to clean it well. Sounds obvious, doesn't it? Very important though. Each step of polishing a car, if you skimp on the previous steps, your results can go south. When you clean your car, if it's a really dirty old battered car that's done hundreds of thousands of miles, be very careful. Clean it twice is a quick way of, you know, good bit of advice. But when you're cleaning a car to prepare it for machine polishing, use pure detergents, so don't use any wash and waxes or anything like that. Use perhaps stronger, more aggressive products that are going to really impact on dirt, and do lots of brush work. So get a nice stiff hogshead brush, clear out all these channels here, all these things here, brush right into there, get it all really clean. Do it all twice if in doubt. Some people will laugh at that statement, but it's just very important. You do not want bits of dirt falling out or being drawn into the polisher when you're polishing up to edges and stuff like that. Okay, second thing, decontaminate properly. Use aggressive clay bars if it's an old car that's got tons of contamination on it. You know, I've just bought auto clay, more built Hamber clay that I tend to recommend. Clay the hell out of it. If it's a newer car, then less aggressive claying methods, perhaps. Now, when it comes over to the polishing machine, so we're just using a free spinning dual action polisher. We're using a Flex one, so it's an expensive tool. It's a tool that I've only recently had, and you can do this with a cheap dual action polisher, or a Flex, or a Rupes, or whatever polisher you want to use. Rotary, forced rotation, dual action. 99% of you are going to be using free spinning polishers, which are nice and easy to control and nice and easy to use, and you know, that's why they're widespreadly available. Do not get too worried about like tool envy. Don't fall into tool envy. You could polish your car with a DAS 6 Pro type polisher and just get the same results that I'm going to get with a good tool. But the more you do of this, you'll probably want the best tools, and some people want the best tools straight away. Okay, pads. You can use any pads that you like. There is no miracle pads, but I'm using the Flex pads. As I've said before, I believe they're kind of one of the best pads on the market. Very expensive. That's my only bugbear with them, but they last a bit longer. There's a sort of, they don't delaminate on the surface as quickly as, say, the Hexlogic pads, but they're about 14 quid, where the Hexlogic pads are about 9 quid, you know. So, you know, it's whatever you want pad wise, guys, whatever you want. But I love these Flex pads. Now with pads, you have thicker, harder pads, more coarse pads that you'll typically use for cutting. You don't always want to default to the most aggressive coarse pad that's out there. I'm using a sort of mid-range cutting pad here, and we're going to be doing heavy cutting on old, heavily weathered clear coat. Okay, we need to heavy cut it. These abrasives here that I'm showing you, Koch H9, F6, M3, they are all you need. Okay, they are pretty much all you need, and if you want to explore more abrasives, by all means do, because I have as well, and I think I enjoy exploring them. If you want to explore AOI polishes where you add the protection at the same time, explore them. But for pure paint correction, these three products are pretty much all you need. You won't often need to cut more than this product can cut. So if you're not cutting and you think you need more cut, it's probably down to something you're doing wrong. Now we have Koch Chemie Seal, which is a panel wipe product, water-based, alcohol-based primarily. It's got other solvents in it. You can dilute it down 4:1 to wipe off these polishing oils. You might want to go a bit higher, I don't know yet, I haven't used it. 25 quid for 5 litres. At 4:1, that's 25 quid for, that's 5 times 5. It's 25 litres, so you're effectively getting 25 litres for 25 quid. This is about £1 a litre, I think, if my maths has held out. So it's very cheap. It's even cheaper than making your own panel wipe. Should have explored this product later on. And it's made by Koch Chemie, and it's what they recommend to remove their abrasives. These are water-based abrasives, so they'll break down with water. So you can use a water miscible solvent for them. It's important to know how your abrasive is made. Some abrasives, if you add water to them, they'll sort of resist the water. And you shouldn't get any water anywhere near them. And a water-based panel wipe won't be the most effective thing to remove it. You want a hydrocarbon sometimes. That's a solvent-based abrasive. Then most of them are sort of emulsions that are water-based and will take water. Okay, so a water-based panel wipe is often a good way to go. If in doubt, use the panel wipe from the manufacturer of your abrasive, because they are going to obviously have the best product for removing their abrasive. If you use someone else's, you're taking a gamble if you don't understand all those things about certain types of solvents that I've just said. These are very important things, by the way, as well. Not that much can go wrong when you're machine polishing. Some of the biggest risks are around contamination and dust and grit, okay, and not seeing it because you're not inspecting properly. So in other words, you're going in to polish a car, and what you do is you polish away some of the swirling, but you put in nice pigtails or fish scales or machine marring, not just machine marring but grit induced marring, and because you're not working in the right light with the right equipment, you don't notice it, and you polish the old car, and then perhaps a week later when you're washing it, you see all the pigtails and you're like, oh no, what's this? That's the biggest risk. The next biggest risk is perhaps not getting the most efficient results that you can get. Anyway, we need to crack on with this, guys. It's important to talk about all these things, though, really. I'm always rushing when I'm doing the videos and thinking, I've got to get through this, I've got to get through this. The most important thing is that some of these little silly bits of information are actually some of the most important things. So it always pays to kind of listen to the videos, even though it sounds really, really obvious. So what we're going to do, we've got hard BMW clear coat here, old BMW clear coat with tons of swirls. This is never going to be a quick single stage. A single stage will give you a bit of cut, a bit of finish. You might be able to do a single stage paintwork, you know, paint correction on a car that's in reasonable condition. You just want to gloss it up and it's got some fine swirling. It's a couple of years old, or whatever. You might not have the time, or you might just say, well, a single stage will do to me, but most of the time cutting and then finishing is the most efficient way to do it. Okay, so we get our pad on. We make sure our pad is centered, and obviously the flex pads fit beautifully on the flex machines, okay? So we're on there. Our pad is clean, okay? And I use a toothbrush, a cheap, soft toothbrush to clean out pads after each set. When the pad is nice and fresh, you can see all the pores. After a while, when you're taking off, you're polishing, you're removing clear coat, you're burning out all the carrier of your abrasive, you gunk up all of the pores of your pads, and it becomes a flat surface and it doesn't work as well. The dead slurry of polish and clear coat is also going to dry out, and it's going to stick to your panel and bed down. You get clumps of polish on the paintwork of your car, and because the pores aren't free on the pad, you won't scrub it off so much. You'll slide over the top of it, heat it up and burn it into the paint, so it's a bugger to remove. That's called bedding down. That's another risk of something that can go wrong. After each set, take your pad outside away from the car and spin it over and clear out all the rubbish on the surface of your pad. If you really want to, you could take the pad off, flush it out with your hose, and it will blast all of the spent polish out of it, and it will get it really clean. The downside is your pad is then wet. When it's wet, it will affect the polish. Okay, when you've wetted the pad, if you take it off, sandwich it in a clean towel and push it down, keep pumping, it will suck all the water out of it and it'll be 99% dry. But even a 99% dry pad might flick off a bit more polish and loosen the polish enough so that it will splatter. So the more pads you have, the better. So that after, say, about 5 to 10 sets, probably closer to 10, of me cleaning the pad with the brush, I'll just rip the pad off, put it in a bucket of water so the polish doesn't set inside the pad. Polish over time will set like a plaster of Paris, and it will set inside the pad. And what will happen is then when you go to clean it, you'll still be able to get the dirt and flush out most of the polish from the surface, but it's all crusted in the middle. And that forms what I call bullets. And you'll see it on finer, softer pads the next time you go to polish. Little dots of white polish in there. And those little dots of clumped up polish can actually scratch paint and cause marring. So you want to maintain your pads. So I'd recommend you just put them in water after you've done it. If it's a water-based polish. Right, let's get going. How much polish should you use? When you're doing finishing polishes, so using soft pads and finishing polishes, use tiny amounts. If you can see a film with a product, you're there, okay? That's it, really. When you're cutting, you don't want to use too much. You don't want to be wet trails of like product after you spread it. You just want a film. But sometimes I find, you know, a lot of times people say you're using too much, but I find you want a decent amount. So like they typically say dime size, don't they, with most of these products. I don't even know what a dime looks like. But I put, this is a bone dry pad, so I'm going to put 4 blobs of polish on there, okay? And that's fine. And most sets I'll probably use that, or just slightly smaller blobs. Right. You'll see when I lay this down. Okay, hopefully you can see. Oh, now, before we get going, tape. This is something I haven't covered much on the channel. So some guys that polish will mask up the entire car, like mask up all the windows and glass and stuff like that. You know, it's easy to mock that, but that's some benefits to doing that. The dust won't sit and fall in all these seals and stuff like that. So, but it's a hell of a lot of work to mask it up like that. And generally you don't really need to. I don't use bags and stuff or paper over the wheels or any of that stuff. I don't. I just use the tape to stop cramming polish. Now, if I'm going to demo polishing this section here, the biggest risk is this rubber, this black rubber. If the polish hits that, it's going to pull dirt off of the surface of there, and it's going to put grit in the pads and stuff like that. Grit's a strong word, but it's dirty stuff. So I just want to tape right up to that edge, so that I'm polishing. If I hit it, I hit tape and not that black rubber. Okay. Now this channel down here I'm not worried about because it's clean. Okay. There might be some dirt right down in the bottom of it, but the polisher's never going to hit that. So you know, if I'm taping up this car, I look at that door handle, I'd tape up around there because there's rubber. I'd tape up along this seal here because I'd be cramming polish in there, maybe pulling fine bits of dirt. There is some dirt in there, believe it or not. Yeah, I gave this a good wash, but I said I wasn't going to polish it because it needs paintwork. But I'm just doing a demo anyway, so there we go. Right, let's get on with this. Okay, I'm running out of power on this phone, so hopefully you've got a cracking view there. Yeah, you've got a decent view of that panel. So what we're going to do, we've got our heavy cutting compound and we're just going to plonk this down. We're doing a 2x2 area roughly, so I can reach the middle. And before you start polishing, always make sure you can actually reach the whole area, the whole target area. Okay, and I'm just dabbing out the polish, and then at speed 1 you're going to make a thin film with the polish, so we've got fresh polish over the whole section. Okay? Okay, just going to change the angle so you can see me as well. It's not the best bit to demo polishing on, but never mind, it's good because it's real. Okay, then we're going to crank the speed up. I'm going to put the speed on this machine up to about 5. These cordless ones, I run them a little bit faster because the speed scale is different. So this might be slightly slower on a corded DA. So it's about speed 5 here, and we're going to polish until I see this is had enough, okay? About enough now, guys. Not busting yet, I could go longer. Okay, so a couple of things. There's the pad. We're going to clean that out now, or we would be cleaning that out. I just want to show you the abrasive. So the abrasive is still going, okay? You can see it's still there. If we keep working and working and working, eventually that abrasive is going to dry up. And if we'd been doing loads of sets and this was our 10th set, oh, there's an ant on my camera. There'd be more, it would dry up a lot quicker, dust quicker, because you've got more spent product on the pad. Okay, so, but the abrasive itself is still going, but that's about the right time to stop. Now, buffing it. First of all, don't spray anything onto the panel, okay? Don't spray any IPA or anything on that thing. Take your buffing cloth, and I'm going to use one of these grey ones. When you work it, I like to use open pole cloth, so I've got the inter-detailing ones there, and I've got some original Eagle edgeless there, but I don't want to just I'll have to create a wash for just one towel, so I'm just going to use a nice soft edgeless microfiber towel here. So first of all, just buff the residue off. Always make sure your cloths are clean and buff gently. You know, you shouldn't really need to be buffing with loads of pressure. I'm not putting any pressure here, and the abrasive is just picking up. The more polish you pick up with this product, the less, you know, effective it becomes. So you've got to swap your cloths out and flip sides and things like that, and you'll get a, you know, that's just something you just learn. But it does make a difference. But you can see I'm picking up the spent product. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to inspect the paint. So we would take our panel wipe here and spray it on. And I'm just using IPA here because I haven't mixed up any of that Koch seal. And I'm just going to spritz some IPA. That's quite a lot. I want to put a bit more pressure so it miss it about, but that'll do. Doesn't matter. And here's a little tip: use a clean side of the cloth. You know, when you're doing the panel wipe, because if you've got polish on there and you hit it with the cloth, the wipe is going to just melt the polish, break the polish down in the cloth, and it will be more smeary. So I want to get this really clean. So I'm using a clean side of the cloth. I'm just picking this up. Okay, and that's it. Just give that little flip. I want it dry for when I inspect it. Now I'm just, I can see it flashing. It's perfect temperature for polishing today. 18 degrees. Nice day. Ideal for doing this in my garage today. Okay, now a light source. So we're using a little torch. I would be using that. Normally I'd have that on and all these other lights off, but I'm just kind of showing you. This GoPro's rubbish for showing you swirls, but I'm telling you straight away, I can still see little marks that you could probably see in the camera, but this is proper. So hopefully you can actually see this paint. That one set has done absolute wonders to this paint, comparing with what the paint is like over here where I haven't polished. I'm hoping you can see all this. Let's try and get, is that better? Like that. Yeah, that's the way to show it, isn't it? So this is kind of trashed paint. This now is not perfect paint, but it's really, really improved. In fact, it's looking good. Now, to get this paintwork on this car looking, one, you're never going to get perfection with this. There's too many scratches. What you're going to be able, it's like peeling back the layers of the onion. What you're going to be able to do is make the paintwork a lot better. Now, how many sets should you do? You need to be careful on old paint as well. Now, as a rough ballpark, if you're doing more than 3 cutting sets on paintwork, that's quite a lot. So, you know, it's a long discussion, and we could go into the territory of paint depth gauges, and you should be taking some depth gauge readings before you kind of do this. With this particular car, I would probably be having to do 2 or 3 sets of cutting. Just depends, really, actually. Just depends. I'd never be going for perfection with this car because I'm never going to get it. And if I chase perfection, I'm going to leave myself with no clear coat or very little. Now, just that one heavy cut has made a massive difference to the quality of the paintwork. And if you stick to the rules, it should work. When you start rushing, trying to save time, things go wrong. It's a set piece game, this. Now I'm going to clean the pad, okay? I'm going to load up my polish exactly the same way, a tad less polish, okay? Now that I've done that first pass, and I'm just going to go again. When I've got the level of correction to a decent amount, then what I do is I'll put on an orange pad, a softer pad, use slightly smaller amounts of this micro cut polish, and then I'll refine it and gloss up the paint. And I like to do one, you know, ideally one polishing pass, maybe 2. It's up to you. Every time you add another set in there, you've got to repeat that for the entire car, and it will have radical, let's just dramatise it, but it will, radical differences on how long this takes. How long should it take you to polish a car? It's personal preference of how much time you want to spend. Most people want to do it all in one day, which is a hell of a tall order, because really a really filthy car would take you 3 hours to clean and clay properly, you know, the paintwork properly. Some could argue longer, and that would leave you with, what, 4 to 5 hours machining, unless you make it a really long day. 2 days, I think, is a really healthy amount of time where you can achieve a lot. You know, and 3, some would argue brilliant, you know, if it needs loads of time. After that, I think personally it starts getting a bit silly, but that's just my opinion. If I owned a very valuable car, you know, why, you know, or, you know, and I didn't know about detailing, I might pay a professional to spend that sort of time on it if I had loads of money. So there's no right or wrong, but personally for me, 2 to 3 days working on a car paintwork is enough. When you go beyond that, you've got to ask yourself the amount of hours you've put in. You're probably better off getting the bloody thing resprayed, unless the paintwork is of real value. It isn't on this car, and it needs to be resprayed anyway. So I'm not going to be going ahead. I lost the battery while I was in full flow, so I just put it on quick charge, and I've gone and done a quick polishing set over here, guys, just to see what one set of cutting and polishing will deliver. And the paint looks really, really good. You know, you can probably see even with the GoPro that there's a lot more kind of, it just looks decent, doesn't it? And if I go back over here where it hasn't been cut, you can probably see a lot more sort of hazy defects around the light. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. This paintwork here is still covered in defects. Look, there's a massive long scratch all the way along here that you probably won't see, but all the way along here, and there's quite a lot of scratches here, and I mean there's marks all the way through it. But when I look at the paintwork before and after, the level of correction is really, really good for one cutting pass. So be aware of that some guys message me and say, John, I've done my cutting, I've still got marks there. And I say, well, what car is it? And it'll be like, you know, it'll be like a 2004 Ford. And then suddenly you think, well, it's, you know, it's a 16-year-old car. You're not just going to perfect it with one cut, you know, and you'll never perfect it. So there's limitations. So sometimes don't get caught up in all the swirls when you're in that light where you can see them. Just know that if you're improving the paint, you know, once you go beyond 2 sets of cutting, it starts getting, you're doing a, you know, it becomes very time consuming. And stick to the set piece. Always clean those pads out, swap those pads out regularly. Stick to the set piece. Don't plough through if things start going wrong. If things dust or product starts bedding down, becomes difficult to remove, solve those types of problems. It should just be a smooth set piece, working your way around the car, and that should be it. And be very careful with your back. Just try and keep your back a bit straight, because you will feel it after, you know, after a day of polishing. It will, you know, hurt your muscles and stuff like that. That's it, guys. If you've got any questions, let me know, and I'll do my best. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.